Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today I've got Paul Lloyd, and we're going to be talking about a particular situation in organizations where you've got a startup, you're probably a founder, and you've probably got to the point where you've sold to all of your network, and you need to actually either get outside people to come in and help you sell so you can focus on the business. That sort of thing. And we're going to talk about it with Paul. So, Paul, where can people find you?
So, the obvious place is LinkedIn. So, Paul Lloyd. Again, on my website. So, the company is Cellularly, and the website is cellularly.co.uk. Or alternatively, it's paul@cellularly.co.uk. Or the good old-fashioned way with the telephone would be actually not that old-fashioned, but 07764 247 444.
Excellent. And I love the fact that you live in a mud hut.
Well, it's not quite a mud hut, although having said that, it's about 24 degrees outside for the first time for about 18 months. And I've been wearing a jumper all day in here because the walls are 18-inch thick.
Yeah.
And of course, and I've got a thatch roof, so it's very sort of economic.
So it's a mud hut with a grass
roof. So I've got a grass roof, but these are supposed to be genuinely 500-year-old beams.
Right.
Which I'm not 100% convinced about, but they're holding the ceiling up, which is the important part. So and it is only there. That is actually.
So let's get to the business of today, which is to talk about small businesses. So there's lots of organizations out there, especially in the world of IT, where someone comes along, they've got a great idea, they either develop a product or they may be reselling a product, and they go out and they sell to their network, and then they get to the point where they kind of can't sell anymore, and they need to go out and find new people they don't know to basically sell to. So how do they do that?
I mean, first and foremost, it's obviously an issue for small businesses as they transition, but increasingly it's an issue for bigger businesses that don't understand how to put things together to sell and scale. So, I mean, fundamentally, businesses start and it's recommendation referral, as you say. So they've got a friend, or they meet somebody in the pub, they buy it, they recommend to your friends. And the beauty of a recommendation is that first and foremost, there's a need, because you don't ask for a recommendation unless you're actually looking. And then obviously, once somebody's given you a recommendation, then as you make a judgment on the referrer to start with, as opposed to the company that you're talking to. So when you get to speak to the company, or they come to speak to you, they're halfway there. And the problem then is when they then start to look to become perhaps a little bit more sales focused, or they want to grow to a plan and they've got to reach out, then that's a whole different ball game, because you haven't got the strength of the referral. Typically, there isn't the brand. I mean, if you go and buy a can of Coke, you know you're going to get a can of Coke. But very small, very few IT businesses have that brand awareness. So you've got to start to build that and start to think about selling deliberately, is the way that I tend to refer it. So you're actually saying, I want to go out and sell to these people. They're going to buy off me, as opposed to waiting, hoping that they're going to come to you, which is, sort of where they got to. So I've got 10 things which I genuinely believe need to be in place. So you've got, first and foremost, your target market. So you can't, with the best will in the world, your recommendation and referrals will have come from anywhere. And your answer always would have been yes. So whether it was somebody in Glasgow or Portsmouth, big company or small company, yes, of course I can. And you get on and do it. But when you're actually going out in a more organized fashion, you need a target market. So that doesn't necessarily need to be the sort of traditional vertical. It could be a technology, it could be a geography. It almost doesn't matter, as long as they've got something in common that you can then build a sales story against. There's all the reasons why they should deal with you. So we build a target market, and then we build a sales story. And that story then is all of the reasons why those people should deal with you. So you know it because it's your business. If you want people to sell on your behalf, they've got to know it. So you've got to be able to transfer your knowledge, your 4 a.m. story, the one that says it's 5:25 on a Friday afternoon and your main customers just phone you up because the network's broke and they've got all the finance to do over the weekend. And we trugged off and we were there till 4 a.m. and we got it all to work. Yeah.
So this is for when someone says, so what do you do?
Yeah.
You can say, rather than, well, we're in the 4th quadrant of the Gartner.
That's it. And it's speaking in the language of the client. So, for me, if somebody says to me, what do you do? Then my sort of standard response, I work with companies where they've become an accidental sales manager and they're not entirely sure how to take the things forwards. So,
there you go.
And it's in their language. So they understand what I'm saying rather than, I'm a sales director with 35 years experience and I manage lots of people, so what? So, so we build a sales story, then we build a sales process. Now, if you'd have said to me 10 years ago, you need a sales process, I'd have laughed at you. But, because in the old days, we didn't, obviously, because we were a lot cleverer. But today, we need a sales process and we need to have quite rigorous checks along the way so that we're not chasing business that isn't in the right sector, isn't the right size, they're not going to say no when you get to the end. They're not going to come up with a whole raft of reasons and excuses why they wouldn't want to deal with you. So we put some time into that, and then we can obviously from there we've got a pipeline. So we're moving towards a more disciplined, structured sales department.
I think just going back to the working on business that we can win is important, because what you do is you say to the salespeople, go out and get business.
Yeah.
And actually what you mean is go out and get business that you can win.
Yeah, and that's typically, and I see this happen in bigger companies, but fundamentally, salespeople join and they give them a desk, a chair, a laptop, access to Google, and say, go and bring us some business. Whereas what you're saying is, really, that's my target market, and I would expect them to produce a list for the salespeople when they join, because there's nothing worse than joining a company and they say, well, go and build a list, because 8 weeks later you've not sold anything and you think that's the way forwards, don't you? All I got to do is build a list and they'll keep paying me. So I constantly tell people to, or sort of the founders, to build a list of people that are in their market, that are the right size, that they know are up for the products that and the services that are actually selling. Give that to the salesperson and go, those are the people I want to sell to. Now, typically, if you've got a full-time salesperson, that could be 300 named accounts, and their job is 300 named accounts, not 301. Just concentrate on this, because we know they're the right size, they're in the right market, and they're buying what we're doing from somewhere. So, we've got that structure. And then it's really a matter of reaching out. So, it's good old-fashioned telephone, God forbid, and on top of that, we've got email, and obviously
there's a book behind you, Paul.
There's a book here. Look, yeah, and it's all about social. But it's all. In many respects, it hasn't changed for years. The whole essence of what we're trying to do is get a meeting with the person that we've identified as being a prospect for what it is that we're selling. So we do that with a whole raft of different things. But the important thing, again, is that it becomes a process, and it's a blend of all of the various aspects of what you can do to get in front of that prospect. And once you've got this structure, then you can start to say, we want to win 6 new customers this year. What does that mean? Well, that means we've got to speak to 24 companies or 30 companies. How do we get to speak to 30 companies? Well, we have, success with this process. So we want you to follow that process and be able to forecast and predict on the basis of your pipeline. And if you get all that right, you know exactly how much business you're going to get in every month. And, the salespeople respond to you because you're supporting them. You're actually helping and supporting them to succeed, rather than what tends to happen is there's a desk, there's a chair, now do this by the end of the month, and there's this constant threat.
Yeah, and I think that the process, I think quite often what leadership don't understand is that the process is actually about giving you visibility of cash flow or resource. There's a balance in between what resources do we need and what cash are we going to get in. And quite often it's well, when you say to a leader, they go, yes, those are two things that are really important. Okay, well, you need to know where the things are in the sale, because ultimately you can kind of work out in your head, well, if it's this far through the sales process, okay, you may lose it, but let's assume we win it. Therefore, you're going to need to better resource it.
But it's also, I mean, it's cash, it's stock in the warehouse.
Yeah.
And it's actually being able to have a conversation with the bank manager, if necessary, where you can prove that your forecasts are accurate, so you can have a conversation around where you expect your business to be.
Yes.
And they will take notice of you. There's no point in doing that. We've got 30% growth this coming year when you've had no growth for the previous 5. And also, I mean, increasingly in the market, there's sort of mergers and acquisitions, and that database and that pipeline has a tangible benefit and value to the business.
Yes.
And all too often, certainly in the smaller end, they don't value that. They go to market and they go, well, where's your growth? Oh, well, we've done all right. We've grown 50% in the last 10 years, and we've added these customers. But what you're doing next month, well, we'll do all right. Something will happen, rather than bang, this is what we've got, this is where we're at, this is what we expect. And actually treating sales as much as anything as a profession, but which is a particular bee I have in my bonnet, I guess. But I think if you do the pipeline, the salesperson's job is to manage a pipeline, deliver a forecast, and then deliver the business that they say they're going to do. And to some extent, that's it, isn't it? It's no more complicated than that.
No.
But they've got to have the structure behind them from the company to be able to do that. So you worked for Oracle 100 years ago, and they would have done it this way. Benioff at Salesforce doesn't go to his salespeople, just trot off and bring me some business. SCC, Computer Center, Softcat. I mean, all of the major Microsoft. I mean, all of the major companies have a structured, managed, deliberate business planning process to deliver business. And all I do is sort of make it relatively easy, but do that with the smaller businesses. So we're saying we want to grow 20% this year. What does that mean? How many new customers, how many new seats, whatever it happens to be. And then how do we go and do that? So I did a workshop with a company a few years ago, and they'd actually in the 12 months previous won their first £500,000 account.
Fantastic.
And the guy said to me in this workshop, I said, so you want to grow next year, so what's the plan? He said, well, we're going to get another 4 of those. And I went, fantastic, how are you going to do that then? He said, well, we got that one without too much of a problem. Yeah, but how are you going to, what are you doing to get the others? And he hadn't got the first idea that to win 4, he's got to identify 20, and then he's got to be out there working in them. And because it just happened to have happened, he's just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And hope is,
and that's the difference between luck and a process.
Absolutely, yeah. Because we've all got, I talk to a lot of people, and they've all got a customer from somewhere. So they did an email shot and they got a customer.
Yeah,
actually happened to me last week. I did an email shot and somebody phoned me and booked a workshop just like that. But that's once in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But we've all got one of each of the various things that you can do. But if you actually analyze it, you've got to go back and look at the ones that work and build this process, which is different for every business and every product, because there's nuances there that make the difference.
So go through your 10 points again. Did we get?
So essentially, I have the target market. So we build a target market. We've got the sales story. So let's build a story around the business that makes it match that target market. build the sales process, understand where we figure in the market, because it's tied into the target market really, but there's no point in going as a small business after NatWest Bank. You've got to understand where you fit and where you sit.
So that's not a competitive thing.
Not necessarily, no. It's
realistically, because
realistically you can do.
NatWest would probably better buy you rather than buy your services.
I went to see the IT director, or I actually went to see senior purchasing manager at NatWest Bank years ago, as it happens, and he looked at me straight in the eye and he said, "If you want to deal with the bank, it's going to cost you £250,000." And I looked at him and he said, "Well, by the time you've jumped through the hoops and gone through the process and done all of that, it's going to cost you £250,000. So if you're not prepared to invest that now, don't bother."
Yeah.
So, understand where you fit. Obviously, then the differentiation. So what differentiates you from your competition? And the beauty of that really is if you do your vertical market, do your target market and your sales story right, then you've created that differentiation. So, it may be you deal with solicitors and that becomes your differentiation. That's all we do. We service the legal market. We do not for profit. We do, whatever it happens to be. But you can build the differentiation then into that story and into that target market. We've then got maximizing our demand. So actually doing the outreach through social media, informing and educating and doing various events. What you're looking for is increasing opportunities to have a conversation. So, I think that at the moment you have to be seen in 7 different places, or they need to have seen your name 7 times before they recognize who you are. Well, that's never been as easy as it is, in this day and age. So, be there, be out in the networking events, be on LinkedIn, be, across social. There is more to social than LinkedIn, apparently. So, you want to be able to do that, but be seen and be known in your market. I think I've done it for a long time, but I'm reasonably well known in my market because I'm everywhere.
You are.
If you go to an MSP event, the chances are it's a slightly thinner since I moved to Dorset, but I'm there, and I'm all across LinkedIn, and I'm constantly doing things that sort of lifts that profile.
But you're here because of the fact that I was going through LinkedIn and I thought, I'm not spoken to Paul for ages.
So, but and the thing is that you do a lot of it, and it's almost intangible, because I'll go to London for the day, and my wife will say, "How did you go?" And you say, "Well, it was all right. I met a load of people." "Well, have you got any business?" "Well, it doesn't work like that. I'm there, I'm seen, I've talked to people. I'll follow some up, they'll follow me up. Ask me in 6 months' time." She never does, actually. She always asks me at the end of the month, "What have I earned?" But we've then got the customer journey. Do we have a nice slick onboarding process so that when they do actually come with us, that we know that we can handle it and we can get them on board properly? Because again, we're building this recommendation and referral pipeline. And then obviously the other thing that is can't be overemphasized is just about your numbers. So if you're going to have a plan and you want to, so I've got a client at the moment, he wants to grow. I tend to work with people on the basis of growing 100% in 3 years.
Okay.
And the principal reason for that is I can work the numbers out in my head generally. So,
and that's the ambition that you're looking for.
And that's it. So, what I'm saying is look, we can grow, and it's 23% a year, essentially. So we'll grow 23% a year over 3 years, and that will give you 100% growth. So let's look at the first year. What does that mean in terms of new customers? Now this guy he'd got a telemarketing organization, he'd got doing thousands of emails, and all he needs to do is win 4 new customers. So then we sort of trim everything back to saying, right, let's win 4 new customers.
Yeah.
And then next year we'll have to win 6 or 8 new customers, because we're going to be that bit bigger and so on. And just actually having that and understanding what's genuinely required, as opposed to, well, we'll do all right, or we'll do this and whatever.
Well, the classic thing, isn't it? Which is that we start a new year, and then you go, well, we need to do that number. We need to get another salesperson.
Yep.
And then they say, oh yeah, but it takes 6 months to onboard the salesperson. So we should have done that 6 months ago.
Yeah. And that's, I've done turnaround, I've done startup, and whenever I've done it, it's the 15, 18 month point. If you follow this religiously, it's the 15, 18 month point where you then are typically, I've been 30% up on 12 months before. So when I get to 18 months, I'm 30% up on the 6 month point. And then as long as you can keep it rolling, then, obviously it looks after itself then, and you can add people as you go along. But, as you say, it takes 6 months to get somebody up to speed. If you can build a pipeline behind. So one of the things that I try and do is to take away some of that drag with the expense of the resource, and have sort of the social media and all the various sort of marketing with a small m, and then add an SDR type role, somebody to actually work the database and build that database and build a pipeline for the owner. And then when the owner's got enough pipeline, look at adding, I don't want to say a proper salesman, but somebody who's outbound and is more used to that level, and then to take the pipeline. So we're, rather than doing the kind of the American way of spending tens of thousands of pounds and banging lots of salespeople in and just let's hope, is to actually do it on the sort of a slow build up to start with. Obviously, it depends on how much time and how much money they've got, but in simple terms, you can do it relatively, not inexpensively, but smaller investment if a plan. And again, it comes back to the plan. What do we need to do? How many people do we need to speak to? What does that look like? But do it deliberately. Don't do it on the basis of a wish and a prayer, because it don't happen.
Paul, thank you so much for coming on and talking about what we need to do, transitioning from founder to seller to sales. Where can people find you?
As I say, I'm on LinkedIn as Paul Lloyd. If you're in the IT industry, I'd like to think I'm no further than a second degree connection. The website is cellularly.co.uk, and my email is paul@cellularly.co.uk.
Thank you so much for coming on. You shared so much insight. I've made a whole load of notes as well. So thank you.
Not a problem.
And we didn't talk about beekeeping, so
we didn't get as far as next time beekeeping.
Yeah, we'll talk about beekeeping next time.